Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 We're reading from the Bhagavad-gita as it is, from the 10th chapter, entitled The Opulence of the Absolute, text number 11. Te samevanukampartam aham ajnanajantamaha nasayami atmabhavastu yana dipena basvata Tesam, for them, Eva, certainly, Anukampa, Artam, to show special mercy, Aham, I, Agyanajam, due to ignorance, Tamaha, darkness. Nasayami, dispel. Atmabhava, within their hearts. Sta, situated. Jnana, of knowledge. Dipena, with the lamps. Basvata, glowing. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Purport. When Lord Chaitanya was in Benares promulgating the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, thousands of people were following him. Prakashananda Saraswati, a very influential and learned scholar in Benares at that time, derided Lord Chaitanya for being a sentimentalist. Sometimes Mayavadi philosophers criticize the devotees because they think that most of the devotees are in the darkness of ignorance and are philosophically naive sentimentalists. Actually, that's not the fact. They are very, very learned scholars who put forward the philosophy of devotion. But even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or of his spiritual master, if he's sincere in his devotional service, he's helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. The Mayavadi philosophers think that without discriminating one cannot have pure knowledge. For them, this answer is given by the Supreme Lord. Those who are engaged in pure devotional service, even though they be without sufficient education and even without sufficient knowledge of the Vedic principles, are still helped by the Supreme God, as stated in this verse. The Lord tells Arjuna that basically there is no possibility of understanding the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by speculating. For the Supreme Truth is so great that it is not possible to understand Him or to achieve Him simply by making a mental effort. Man can go on speculating for several millions of years, and if he's not devoted, if he's not a lover of the Supreme Truth, he will never understand Krishna or the Supreme Truth. Only by devotional service is the Supreme Truth, Krishna, pleased, and by his inconceivable energy, he can reveal himself to the heart of the pure devotee. The pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart, and with the presence of Krishna, who is just like the sun, the darkness of ignorance is at once dissipated. This is the special mercy rendered to the pure devotee by Krishna. Due to the contamination of material association, through many, many millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, the dust quickly clears and one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. The ultimate goal, Vishnu, can be attained only by this chant and by devotional service and not by mental speculation or argument. The pure devotee does not have to worry about the material necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad-gita. By studying Bhagavad-gita, one can become a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of material endeavors. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Shakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadama Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Vijapada Kamalam Shri Guru Naresanamscha Shri Rupam Sadrajatam Sahanaravantam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sadhana Lalita Sri Sakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutare Pranami Hari Priye Vanchakapatruvyucha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, and we see what an extraordinary devotee Dhruva Maharaj was. We see that Dhruva Maharaj was able to perform a level of austerity which was practically unmatched in the history of the universe. Who could do what Dhruva was doing? First of all, Narada Muni had noticed that this boy, although very young, who had gone to the forest, had a very, very strong determination. Once I read in a purport that Narada Muni, by being graced with mystic power by the Supreme Lord, is able to know what is in the heart of all living entities. Just imagine that, to know what's in the heart of a few is already quite intense. You know what family life is like. What to speak of knowing what's going on in the heart of all living beings, and nothing remains hidden. So Narada knew that Dhruva had this extraordinary determination. So Narada went there, and Narada basically instructed him. And he gave him 3 instructions. The first one was to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He gave him a mantra dealing with the Supreme Lord. Then the second thing he told him to do was to make a form of clay, a deity of clay, just of earth, and to worship that form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the third thing is he instructed him in Ashtanga Yoga. So everything was nicely arranged, and Dhruva took this to a point of great seriousness. Yes, he chanted the mantra. Yes, he worshipped the deity. And yes, he performed his yoga, and in the process, he was engaging in controlling the breath. He was into controlling the senses, and he started to minimize his eating to a point where he was just eating some leaves, to a point where he wasn't even doing that, to a point where he was only breathing, to a point where he even wasn't breathing all the time and had big intervals in his breathing, to the point where he stopped breathing altogether. That's when the whole universe choked. So that's a serious level of yoga practice, something not heard or seen of these days, although we see some amazing feats, but that we have not yet seen anyone do since Dhruva Maharaj. Anyway, when Dhruva Maharaj stopped breathing, the entire universe choked. Even the demigods were not able to breathe. So that became a big problem, obviously. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead had to come and save the situation, and met Dhruva and gave Dhruva benedictions. It was there that Dhruva Maharaj was graced by the mercy of the Lord. Dhruva Maharaj then was touched by the conch shell of the four-armed form of Lord Narayan, and Dhruva Maharaj became empowered to speak. Prior to that, we find the verse Akama Sarvakama Vamokshakama Udarviti Vrena Bhakti Yogena Yayeta Purusham Param. We find the verse, whether you have material desires or not, one should, with great force, dedicate himself to the process of pure devotional service. So to the common reader, that may look contradictory. I mean, material desires. If you have material desires, how can you practice pure devotional service? Wasn't pure devotional service without material desires? No, it meant to commit ourselves to the pure process of devotional service and to follow that with great dedication. Dhruva Maharaj then got realizations. Dhruva Maharaj then said to the Lord, I approached you for a kingdom greater than my fathers and grandfathers, and what I approached you for, now I see that was simply broken. They were simply broken pieces of glass, and now instead I got jewels. Okay, so now we're up to speed with the Dhruva story, broken pieces of glass, the kingdom that he wanted on earth, and he got the direct darshan of the Supreme Lord, something greater than he desired. So that is spiritual life. In the end, what we will get will be greater than what we could have ever desired or could have ever imagined. In the material world, it's always the other way around. You have a dream this big, and then you have to settle for the compromise. Second best, so to speak, or third or fourth. Anyway, life goes on. What to do, so they say. Yes, so that element is there, and we are seeing these things in Dhruva Maharaj's life, and gaining faith and hope that in our own spiritual life also we will be pleasantly surprised and attain things greater than we could have ever imagined. So that is an important point to take from Dhruva Maharaj's pastime. Then, in the Nectar of Devotion, we also find a description about surrender. Just as Dhruva Maharaj surrendered, we also find there the description of Bali Maharaj, who surrendered, Atmanivedan, who gave mind, or offered mind, body and soul to the Lord. Everything he had. Bali Maharaj somehow or other was quite successful in business. He had the entire 3 worlds, which is better even than the ultra rich of today, if you think about it. You know? I mean, Bali Maharaj certainly was the richest man on the planet, right? Undoubtedly on the planet, in the universe, since he had the whole universe, right? You can't be any richer than that when you have the 3 worlds. So, rich he was, absolutely. But then what happened is that, this beautiful little dwarf Brahmana comes to the 3 steps of land, and sure enough, with 2, he takes it all away. Anyway, although Sukracharya, the spiritual master of Bali Maharaj, who by the way also happened to be the spiritual master of Hiranyakasipu, just as a point of interest to note, Sukracharya advised him not to surrender everything to Vishnu, because Sukracharya was thinking of his bread and butter. And, but Bali Maharaj did it anyway. Atmanivedam. He surrendered mind, body and soul. So that was, and Bali Maharaj is always glorified for that surrender. Then in the Nectar of Devotion, the various personalities who attain perfection in each of the 9 processes of devotional service are described. And Bali Maharaj is described there for Atmanivedam, for surrender, mind, body and soul. But then we find in the commentaries an interesting point being made. And it said that the surrender of Bali Maharaj, although he surrendered everything, still it was external. It was incomplete. Because it said Atmanivedam means we give everything, mind, body and soul, whatever we have, but it is still not the same as Sarana Pati, not Gati, this time Pati. Sarana Pati, which means that one is not only surrendering everything to the Lord, but one also develops a mentality of being internally, of being subservient to the Lord. So we remember that Bali Maharaj, after giving everything, the Lord was not satisfied. Well, first of all, he promised 3 steps of land, and the 2 steps all was taken. Then the Lord said, where will I put the 3rd step? On my head, but that was not land, so that was not a deal. So, sorry, he was arrested and strangled in a snake noose, which was somewhat suffocating, to say the least. Bali Maharaj there could not breathe, and he was not an accomplished yogi like Dhruva Maharaj, so it was very difficult for him not to breathe. To say the least, he was choking, he was suffocating, he was suffering a lot. So at that point, one can imagine, you've just given everything you had, everything, and you've given it all, and what do you get? You get strangled in reciprocation. So we can just understand that it was a trying moment, right? This is the point where someone might say, oh, just see, I gave you everything, and now this is what you do. Most of us would snap at that point and get a little bit garam, a little bit angry. It might get out of control. Yes, but no. Bali Maharaj endured it all. And Bali Maharaj managed to make the internal adjustment to Saranapati, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains. He made that internal adjustment to become subservient to the Lord and to give up his own personal agenda. Oh, a little flashback. Bali Maharaj had tried to conquer the heavenly kingdom. Oh yes, he had tried. But utterly defeated he was. Utterly defeated. His forces were devastated. But Sukracharya was very powerful. And Sukracharya, he fixed it up. He fixed it up well because he just revived all the soldiers. So, anybody dead, Hogya? No problem. We will fix that problem. And they were all revived. Then Sukracharya pointed out that now the Devatas were weak because they had been neglecting the worship of their spiritual master. Then he instructed Bali Maharaj to perform austerities and worship, and then in a yajna, from the yajna appeared an armor, a golden chariot and powerful weapons, and Bali Maharaj in that chariot, which was effulgent and bright like the sun, ascended to the heavens and then defeated Indra. And so he sat on the throne of Indra. Yes, so Bali Maharaj had attained this position as the fruit of his austerity and by the blessings of his spiritual master. Now, he was no longer following his spiritual master, and see, he was being strangled in a snake. So there was ample of opportunity to become confused. But Bali Maharaj, in that snake noose, deeply contemplating and deeply thinking, made the adjustment and gave up his personal agenda. Previously he had that agenda to conquer the universe, and he made that adjustment. And the Lord, all along, the Lord was guiding him from within. Tesam evanukam partam aham agyanajam tamaha nasiyami et bhavavastu jnanadipena basvataha. It is said that the Lord, Nasiyami at Bhagavastu, is residing within the consciousness. Once Hiranyakasipu was looking for the Lord after Hiranyaksha was killed. And he looked everywhere for Vishnu because he desired to retaliate and to kill Vishnu. But he said, this Vishnu is such a coward, he is hiding. He is hiding within the heart of the living entity. So heart and consciousness is the same because it's, after all, the soul that resides in the heart, and the soul, the energy of the soul is consciousness. So the Lord resides in the consciousness. Nasiyami atmabhavastu. And as the Lord resides in the consciousness, he's waiting for the living being to turn to him. And when the living being turns to him, then immediately he reciprocates and gives him all kinds of insights and knowledge. Then Srila Prabhupada in the purport here points out that even if someone is situated in devotional service and has externally surrendered to his spiritual master, Atma-nivedam, he has taken all the external attributes of devotional service, but yet not fully internally subservient. Internally still having so many personal desires, internally so much struggling with a personal agenda. When one is in that position, then sometimes one is, although externally nicely situated in devotional service, still not acting according to the desire of the spiritual master. Then Krishna is there. And from within the heart, Krishna will make the adjustments and will guide us. Or without, from without, something may happen. Something may happen. It's like Krishna may suddenly interfere in our life. After all, Krishna is the ultimate controller, and although every living entity is independently acting and making so many plans and doing so many things. All these things come together and it exactly creates the situation that the Lord desired. Exactly. Yeah. So in this way, Krishna is the one who is always with us and always making arrangements for us to come back to Godhead. And therefore, even when a devotee is not perfectly surrendered within, not completely 24 hours a day absorbed in simply serving Krishna, but externally situated in devotional service, Krishna will make the arrangements for our purification. That's basically pointed out here. And Krishna will give us insights and knowledge. I have experienced it on many occasions. Once upon a time, when I first came to this movement, I came to Vrindavan, and but after a short while, I decided that I was always into spiritual life, but I decided that these Hare Krishnas were a bit too much into spiritual life. So I decided to escape. So since I'm sort of into organization, I organized my escape. And when the devotees were all standing in front of the deities, Govindam Adipursam, I slipped out of the back door and I escaped. So I left, and since I was in India, I went to the city of Benares because I had been there before. And when I was in that city of Benares, I came there. I sat down at the side of the Ganga, on the steps. Then one sadhu came to me. Now that happens, especially when you are a foreigner. Usually sadhus come and they say, what is your name? What is your country? Can you give some bakshis? You know, that is, these three things they usually say to us foreigners. Right? And, but this sadhu didn't say anything. He sat next to me. He had an guitar in his hand. Yeah. He played on that instrument. He sat down, played on the instrument, and started chanting Hare Krishna. And I had just escaped. 45 minutes, seriously, 45 minutes, non-stop. He's chanting. At the end of the chanting, he just stopped, got up and walked away. If he would have started a conversation, it wouldn't have been half as dramatic, you know? This is so dramatic. He just chanted, and he just walked away. And I got, oh, what was this, you know? That's like just trying to have a little vacation from the Hare Krishna movement. And here this happens. Here this happens. It was shocking. So I was in this hotel, couldn't sleep the whole night. Next morning I come out in the street. There's a whole group of people, local people, doing a Harinam, chanting Hare Krishna in the street. I go, this place is bewitched, I'm getting out of here. But where to go? Krishna is everywhere. Anyway, so one can see, Krishna makes arrangements. Krishna makes arrangements sometimes. Various arrangements. Sometimes external arrangements, sometimes within, somehow or other. He makes some arrangement to wake us up. Then if we still don't wake up, yeah, I don't know what comes next, you know. Then maybe a truck or something, we wake up in the hospital, you know. I mean, at one point, you got to be careful, right? If you don't take the subtle hints, then I don't know what it's going to take. But once we take a step towards Krishna, Krishna is not just so easily giving up on us. Krishna is very eager to see his devotee return to the spiritual world. I heard that in this temple there's a tradition that the pujari doesn't ring the bell during the arti. Is that true, pujari? It will be all right, because actually the bell is kirtan. And so in this case, I'm already the bell. So don't worry, I am belling like anything right now. Already started belling, so don't worry. Okay, that looks right now. He's gonna blow the horn. But they told me before I could just do what I want. So I traveled so far, really 3 flights, and I just landed today. And I just came here to be with you, and then I feel if I travel that much, and then I get boxed into half an hour, then I sort of feel like, then I rebel. So a little rebellion, I hope is okay. So let us somehow or other we all more or less make the external adjustment. We all more or less accepted the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. And where it's less, we better accept them a little more. Right? And at least come to the minimum level of 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles. And it's not impossible. It's not about I am too busy. No, it's about I am not managing my life properly. I'm wasting time. Like for example, if instead of touching our phone we would touch our beats. How about that one? That would create a lot of time. Yeah? If we would just go that, there was one advertisement that I saw somewhere, and in the advertisement it was about a man who had to get up in the morning and he would put his alarm clock at night. So that is indeed, the bell please. Even the little bell not needed, I am the bell. Believe me, it's really Shastrik. So we put the alarm clock at night so that we can wake up in time in the morning. See, if you put the alarm clock in the morning and you go to bed really late at night, then that alarm clock in the morning rings and you just go take the thing and just throw it away, or put a pillow on top or whatever, or you just don't even care, you just sleep right through it, with great determination. Or you keep on, if it's your phone, which of course you wouldn't throw away, you couldn't do such a thing. You just keep on pushing the snooze button for at least an hour. Yeah, what to do? If we would go to bed a little earlier, then automatically you can rise earlier. It's like, I'm just now doing the jet lag. Like coming into Australia, it's like, it gets dark pretty early over here compared to other places. So, it's gonna be hard to go to bed tonight. We'll see. Then I wonder about tomorrow. That's how it is. When the night is late, the morning will be late. As simple as that. So, some simple time management maybe will help us in chanting. and improving our chanting. Then there are a few other things, a few rules. Don't touch the phone early in the morning. Just don't even keep it in the same room, right? Keep it away from you. Keep a safe distance between the thing and you. Do not look at it, do not touch it, and it's off on flight mode at least while you're chanting. That's it, right? Just shut off from the world. Not such a big problem, actually. Once upon a time, folks, a long, long time ago, there were no phones. No, really, oh my God, yes, no phones, believe it or not, there were none. And you know, you can imagine the world, it was terrible, nothing went on. It was total chaos, right? Total, nothing was possible. People could never meet each other, people would get lost, they didn't have navigation. Oh, it was a disaster. People would go to people's houses and it was just terrible, you know, because there was no call before. Imagine, somebody just rocks up at the door. Oh my God. I mean, right? They call, we're coming. Then they call again, we're 5 minutes away. Calling, okay, we're at your driveway. 3 calls, you know, before you finally come to the door. Oh, what a surprise. It killed all surprise. Yeah? There was actually a surprise. There used to be a surprise. Yes? So it was really nice, actually. Life without these phones went great. Yes, sometimes people couldn't reach you just as well. Just as well. I'm seeing Bhagavad-gita Prabhu and he reminds me of Vrindavan early days, and what can I do? Because he was there. And those are the best years of my life. In Vrindavan, in the temple, right, we had a phone, landline. Yes. And it could even, sometimes it would even ring. It would ring, yes. And you pick it up and you hear on the other side, hello! And you would also, hello! And that's as far as it ever got. Here's some faint hello. Then you could try, you know, I mean, a local call, maybe sometimes, if you were lucky. Most of the times not, right? You could try call Delhi, you know, but only you book trunk call, operator, tuck. Andy, operator, yes. Okay, trunk call to Delhi. 5 minutes later rings and then starts the whole thing with Delhi. Hello. Then you say, operator, lightning call. Now you're paying, you know, you're paying top dollar. And lightning call, you could possibly speak for 30 seconds if you, and then it got cut off, and then that was it. So, you know, forget about the phone. The mail, right, it never arrived. Your mother writes you a letter, you'd never get it. You write her a letter, she'd never get it. So, you didn't have to worry about the letters of your mother, because you'd never get it anyway. You might as well take a bottle and throw it with a letter in and throw it in Yamuna. So, it was very interesting. And we lived so simple. Had a mat, a matka, a clay pot for some water, mat for sleeping, a trunk for some clothes, you know, to keep them from being eaten by moths and things like that. Simple life. No light, no problem, Mombatti, right? No water, take it from the well, right? Somehow or other, you know, take the water from the well. It was okay. Very simple living, and actually, all that simple living made it so easy to be Krishna conscious. And now all this complexity makes it so hard to do simple things. So, in other words, let us just do the basics. Chant 16 rounds, fix the 4 regulative principles, even these little things that we are attached to. Don't take another birth for a cup of tea. Wouldn't that be stupid? No, really, you take another birth for a cup of tea. For some onions? There is a Puranic reference about onions and garlic. And there's the story that a sage was performing a yajna. At the time, his wife was pregnant. Now it says that when ladies are expecting, that they get this urge to eat certain things. And it's very strong. They really need to eat whatever they... Then it says, if they don't give in to this urge to eat what that strong urge dictates, then they get a child that always dribbles from the mouth. Anyway, nowadays no problem. Everyone eats. As soon as they get the urge, they'll eat. But in this time, the husband was performing a sacrifice of a cow. That was, of course, in a Gavalamba Yajna, in a previous yuga, and the Brahmanas had the power to revive the cow by mantra and rejuvenate the cow. As the cow was sacrificed, the pregnant lady had a desire to taste some of the meat. So she took some. But then when the Brahmana chanted the mantras, the cow was revived. And she found herself that what she had in the hands became also alive. And she threw it on the ground. And it became onions and garlic. Yeah, just to encourage you. So what to say? I will not belabor this lecture so much more. The point is, though, that this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of this transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad-gita as it is. Srila Prabhupada, who just gives us the pure essence of Bhagavad-gita, something you can trust for a change. This is the information age, and most of the information is rubbish. And finally here is some good information, and then instead we look at the rubbish. More time for the rubbish and less time for the Bhagavad-gita. So let us somehow or other, yes, take this and go deep. And Krishna will help us. Krishna will help us. That's very clear from this verse. Krishna will help us. We make the external adjustment. Krishna will help us to make the internal adjustment and to become fully subservient to Him. Any question? Any comment?
In the class you were speaking about Bali Maharaj, when he surrendered, was that out of because he knew that he is the Supreme Lord, or was it simply out of like some duty, like here, some Kshatriya is coming or some Brahman is coming, so I have to give charity?
No, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam that Bali Maharaj understood that he was dealing with Vishnu. Yeah, therefore he did it. So it wasn't just Kshatriya Dharma giving to a Brahmana. No, he knew that he's dealing with the Supreme Lord and he wanted to give to the Supreme Lord. But still, internally, he had not really been so much absorbed in cultivating bhakti. So on a finer level, he wasn't just surrendering every moment to the Supreme Lord. He wasn't dedicating every moment to the Supreme Lord. So even when he made that moment of surrender, I give everything I have, and what about yourself? What about you? What about surrendering your prana artha diya vacha? What about surrendering your energy, that your prana, okay, your possessions you did. What about surrendering your intelligence? What about surrendering your vata, your speech? Everything you surrender. So yeah, so the internal surrender was not complete. And as I explained, Vishwanath Thakur explains that comes when he's in the snake, being strangled. And in the same way, we sometimes experience spiritual life also like a snake, as if we are being strangled by all these limitations. Huh? I mean, it's the limit. It's like here we get all the mercy, but then it comes in the form of a process. And the process says, Hare Krishna. And then sometimes we want to open the fingers and look through the fingers a little. We want to stretch the envelope. We want just a little more. And the mind is really like, we're supposed to feel compassionate for the fallen conditioned souls. So Satsvarupa Maharaj, he wrote a book about compassion, and it's an interesting book. He gets into compassion, and then he writes, in the beginning he writes, actually, I don't have any compassion. He said, and if I do have any compassion, I mostly feel compassion for myself. It's very honest, but it's also, it's relevant. Because I've thought like that, it's a beautiful sunny day, and we stand with a book on the street, and all those people sit there on the terraces, enjoying different drinks and ice cream and all kinds of things, and we feel really sorry for, we feel really sorry for ourselves. I'm standing here with books, and they're all sitting there. It's not so easy to actually feel deep, to really feel sorry for how they're entangled in material life, and let me give them the bliss of Krishna consciousness. That takes some inner growth. So we can draw a lot from the Bhagavatam, from the example of Dhruva Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, all these personalities. Yes.
Maharaj, I had an interesting conversation. This is, my apologies, first of all, this is not really related to your class, it's a little bit of a different topic.
Okay.
So, thank you very much for a nice class, but I'm going to ask a slightly different question. I had a conversation with my mother some time ago, and we were talking about the existence and importance of the Parakya Ras in the spiritual world, and how this is the case, that the Parakya Ras exists in the spiritual world eternally in Krishna's Nitya Leelas. And I was saying it is the case, and she was saying, and how is, we had this interesting spiritual debate.
I see.
And then I was talking about how, in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's purports in Brahma Samgita, he explains how this Parakya Ras is there eternally in the spiritual realm.
Sure.
And it was a really beautiful and interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a similar conversation with my dad.
Wow.
About
Exalted
about
family.
how Radharani can cry in the spiritual world. I asked my dad, does Radharani cry in the spiritual world? How is that possible?
Wow.
So please can you talk on this subject matter? What is the relevance
a
of
little
the
bit. A few words, yeah.
Can you give some words on this? What is the importance of these things in the Nitya Leelas, of Krishna's Nitya Leelas in the spiritual world? How is this possible? That there's this Parakya Ras, that there's this Radharani crying, shedding tears, and these sorts of things.
Yeah.
How are these things? Can you please speak on this?
A few words. Even in this world, when in a conjugal relationship between male and female, before the marriage, everything is based on attraction, and therefore before the marriage, everyone tries to look at his best. The man holds his breath, trying not to show certain parts too much. The lady also, she's sweet as ever, She's always, before the marriage, she's always sweet and never shows any other quality. And then comes the moment, the ring on the finger, right? And then things have changed. Oh yes, because now you have obligations, perspirations, and so on. It has changed. Now there's an element of duty. So in the Swakiya ras, in the marriage relationship, there is an element of duty. Just the nature of the relationship dictates the behavior. So there's an external imposition on the relationship that dictates you have to act in this way. Yeah. In Parakiya ras, no, nothing. You have no rights, no claims, nothing. You just have to conquer. You'll have to conquer, and if you don't conquer, I'm after all a lampato. Krishna is after all an unreliable personality. Today he seems sold out, tomorrow he's somewhere else. That is the nature of Krishna. Because Krishna has to be conquered again and again. Therefore Parakiya is higher than Swakiya. Therefore Parakiya, everything in this material world is simply having its roots in the spiritual world. Right? So when we see Krishna's leelas in this material world, then we're also seeing how Krishna is revealing the nature of the spiritual world. In his Vrindavan pastimes, Krishna gives us a preview of the spiritual world. In Dwarka, Krishna acts according to Paritranaya Sadhanam Vinasya Saduskram. He comes to establish principles of religion and annihilate a few demons. But in Vrindavan, Krishna is coming to give us a taste of the nature of the spiritual world. So the essence of Parakiya means that we will simply always have to conquer Krishna. Even Radharani cannot take Krishna for granted. You see, in the Rasa dance, he disappeared. For a moment she was thinking, yes, oh, I'm so tired, I cannot walk anymore. You carry me. And then next moment, he's gone. She has to conquer him again and again. That is the nature of pure devotional service, of devotional service in its purest form. Yes, crying, of course. Crying. Here in this world, what kind of crying do we have? Those are crocodile tears, right? Those are not real tears. Those are materially motivated tears. Huh? Too much crying because we want something. Yes. Crocodile tears. But in the spiritual world, the crying is pure. The crying is purely coming out of a genuine desire to just give all that one has to make Krishna happy. So Radharani is fully absorbed in that desire to increase Krishna's happiness. Mother Yasoda is known for crying. When Krishna has left, Jiva Goswami describes that in separation from Krishna, Mother Yasoda is just crying and crying. Uddhava comes and he sees Yasoda crying, and tears are streaming from her eyes and milk is streaming from her breasts. And Uddhava thinks for a moment, if she goes on like this, she's going to become a river. That's how much she's crying. So in the spiritual world, there's not just a few drops when it comes to crying, not just a little hanky. Oh no, in the spiritual world it can be streams. And remember Prem Sarovar. came from the tears of Radha and Krishna combined in separation. And it formed the whole pond. So yes, in the spiritual world, crying can be tears. Remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who would cry standing next to the Garuda Stamba in the Jagannath temple. And remember that it would just, a stream of tears would come from and fill the drain, right? And a stream would run out of the temple. During Snan Yatra, they were pouring water over Lord Jagannath on the Snan Bedi next to Narendra Sarovar, and Lord Chaitanya was dancing in front. And the amazing thing was that more water was coming from Lord Chaitanya's eyes than all the water that bounced off Lord Jagannath. People said, where's all this water coming from? How can it be that in someone's body there is so much water? Oh yes, in the mood of Radharani, Lord Chaitanya cried. So there's no doubt, in the spiritual they're crying. And that makes the crying in this material world look like, a few sniffles, that's all. Nothing serious. Here, few tears, few tissues solve the problem, but there, rivers of tears. Bharaki is needed because we have to conquer Krishna again and again. So we have to start now. We have to also conquer Krishna at every moment. And get out of this mood that like, oh well, I'm a devotee now, so Krishna will surely be merciful unto me. No. I have to conquer Krishna every moment. Okay, shall we be late with kirtan? I sort of didn't sing through the arti. I can just maybe chant 15 minutes
Till
and then...
till 8:30.
Huh?
Till 8:30?
We'll see about that. You are very encouraging.